She is our speaker today. Dr. Bolding is an occupational therapist who has experience helping older adults learn how to maintain healthy, active lifestyles. She is an associate professor at San José State University, works at the Farewell to Falls program at Stanford Health Care, and is a member of the San Jose Age-Friendly Cities Advisory Council and San Jose State University's Center for Healthy Aging in Multicultural Populations. She has given multiple presentations and has publications related to fall prevention, transportation, and travel for older adults. After Dr. Bolding's presentation, we will have time for some questions. If you have any questions during the presentation, feel free to enter them in the chat and I can ask them for you at the end. And now, I warmly welcome Dr. Bolding. Thank you for joining us today, and we're excited to hear your presentation.
Thank you, Beata. I'd also like to thank Yohocare for the opportunity to talk to this group today. Aging on the go is a topic that I'm passionate about, and I love making sure that we stay as active and as healthy as we can. So in the talk today, I'm going to talk about ways that we can be in the world. And while most of our talk is going to focus on traveling in the real world, I also want to recognize that a way many of us stay active now is in the virtual world. So we're going to touch briefly on that. And then I'm going to talk about, for the real world, ways that we can be engaged and active and also be safe. So I want to tell you a brief story about the last vacation I took before the COVID-19 shutdown. And the two women that I met on that program or on that trip, they were both in their 80s. One of them was not particularly fit. I loaned her one of my trekking poles for walking around. She got a little short of breath when she walked. She had some knee problems and hip problems, but she was determined to go ziplining. And I don't know if you've ever done ziplining, but it's not just hanging out and letting yourself go down the line like this gentleman's doing. It takes a lot of upper body strength, some control, and you have to climb towers that are several stories tall to be able to get up to the platforms to do ziplining. But her goal for the trip was to go on the ziplining adventure, and she did it. And it was amazing to see her smile after she finished the adventure. And so I use this as a reminder that we should not let our perceptions of aging and what's appropriate for aging individuals to guide our actions, but to think big about our actions. Now, when we're talking about aging on the go, there are different life spaces that we inhabit. And of course, the smallest life space that we inhabit is our house or our apartment, our home. And then we also live within our community, the local community, the parks, blocks around where we live, and in our city. And then, of course, there's the rest of the world around us. And one of the perceptions of aging is that as we get older, our life spaces constrict. And so one of my goals is to help people stay active in as many life spaces as they would like to. Now, this is the way it's sometimes thought of. The life spaces are sometimes thought of. So there are the rooms where we sleep, the home where we live, perhaps the apartment building or the deck or the garage. And then there's the area outside of our home, such as the driveway and the yard. But those are relatively small spaces. And then there's our immediate neighborhood where we have might have parks or other houses or buildings or neighborhood restaurants if we live in a city, stores, and other places within our community that we might go to, churches, senior centers, friends' homes, that are within easy commuting distances. And then the broader area would be outside of our county, outside of our state, or in our region, the rest of the United States, or even globally. And there's a lot of factors that play into how many spaces we occupy. So, of course, health is a factor in determining how many spaces we might be able to travel between. There are also other personal factors, sorry about that, other personal factors such as whether we like to travel, how much trouble we think it is, what our endurance is. If we have people, if the people we want to visit live close by, or if they live far away, if we're a caregiver for someone, all of those things might influence our life spaces. And then, of course, there's the environment. It may be dark and we don't like traveling at dark to some of the activities. We may feel unsafe in our environment. There may be cracked sidewalks. There may be too many people. So the environment is also a consideration in what we consider our active life spaces. And then, of course, there are also economic factors about how much we can afford to do and how far we can afford to travel. Now, when thinking about our life spaces, health and maintaining our health is important. And when I talk with people about what exercise they do, the most common exercise they tell me is walking. Well, walking is great. I'm glad you do it. It's wonderful. I hope you continue doing that. But it's not the only exercise that's important for staying safe in our communities. If you walk up a hill, you're going to get some cardiovascular workout and working on that heart muscle. We also need flexibility, and very important for staying safe in the community are balance and strength exercises. So those are all different kinds of ways that we can take care of our health so that we can be safe in the community. And then, of course, there's diet, medications. Sometimes medications will affect our balance or our ability to pay attention to the environments we're in. And then we want to maintain our health by staying safe in our home and in our communities. And this is a large part of my work that has been in the fall prevention areas, staying safe in the home. So I know this is hard for you to read. It's from the CDC and a website called STEADI, STEADI. The link is there, and this form is in the handouts that you can download from this talk. And it has you doing a self-assessment of your own fall risk. I have fallen in the past year. I have been, or I use or have been advised to use a cane or a walker to get around safely. Other questions like I've lost some feeling in my feet. I take medicine that makes me lightheaded sometimes. Other questions that can help you assess your fall risk. And I can tell you already, based on these questions or other factors, what your fall risk is. If you are over 65, you have a 1 in 4 chance of falling. If you're over 80, you have a 1 in 3 chance of falling. If you take more than 3 medications, you have a higher risk for falling. And if you have fallen in the past year, you have a higher risk for falling. So any or all of those things might put you into the high risk category. That's the risk for falling. What's important is your rate of falling. There are many ways that you can decrease the fact whether or not you will really fall. And a lot of that is just paying attention to some of the environment around us and making it as safe as possible. Balance exercises are also important, and there are many balance exercises that you can find online. The woman here is doing a sit to stand exercise that strengthens the quadriceps muscles at the knees. If people tell me they hate exercises and they don't want to do any, this is the one exercise I ask them to do because it helps both your strength and your balance. And so this activity is so important for getting up and down, not just from chairs, but visiting friends who have low sofas, getting in and out of cars, getting on and off of toilets, or getting down onto the floor to play with your grandchildren. So I would say this is an extremely important exercise. And if you can only do it now from a higher surface or with using your arms for support, that's a start. That's a way to begin to work on it. Now, there's also more fun ways to exercise that quadriceps muscles. If you don't like exercises, you might like Tai Chi. You can see that the people in this picture are supporting themselves primarily on that leg with the flexed knee. And that's a great exercise for the quadriceps. Or you might like dancing or other activities that work on your balance. The important thing to remember is that the best exercise is the one that you like and that you will remember to do. Some people don't like to do exercise classes, and they don't like to do exercises in a block. And in that case, I recommend that they snack on their exercises. So while you're waiting for your coffee in the morning or while you're standing in a line, you can practice your balance exercises. While you're doing other activities. And that way, sometimes it doesn't feel quite so intrusive. Safety in the home is also another important consideration. And what I would encourage you to do is to take this checklist or look for another one online and look for hazards in your own home and look at your home like you didn't live there, like you were visiting it, or like you were a therapist coming to look at your home. Are there objects on the floor that you could trip over? Are the steps uneven? Is there a rail for the steps? Is there good lighting? Are there cords across the floor? Are there rugs that have corners that are curling up, or that rugs that are bunched up or uneven? There are many obstacles in the home that we can correct to make sure that we're safer in the home. Now, one of the questions I frequently ask students and therapists and people for whom I'm giving talks is where they think the most falls happen. And the answer I often get is in the bathroom. And sometimes people are surprised that it's not the bathroom. Most of the falls that happen are in our living areas. And if you think about it, it really makes sense. We spend very little time in the bathroom compared to our activities in other areas of the home and also outdoors. So while statistics from different studies may vary slightly from these, in general, the bathroom is the area of the house with the lowest number of falls. Now, that isn't to say that falls in the bathroom can't be more dangerous than some other falls, because there's many hard surfaces in the bathroom that can lead to severe injuries. And I think that plays a role in the perception that so many of the falls happen in the bathroom. If the fall happens in your bedroom and you fall against your bed, you may not even remember that it happened because you weren't hurt, right? Um, Now, the other consideration is when falls happen, and most falls happen between 11 in the morning and 5 in the afternoon. And if you think about that, that also makes sense because that's the time we're hurrying the most. We're trying to do the laundry, prepare the meals, we're bringing in the groceries, times when we might not be paying as much attention to what we're doing. So keep that in mind as you're doing activities to try to be cognizant of obstacles in the kitchen, leaving the grocery bags on the floor and thinking, oh, I'll pick them up later, or I'll take the bags out to my car later, and leaving them on the floor where they could be a tripping hazard. Now, making your home safe does not mean making it look like you live in a hospital or an institution. There are many ways to make your home safer and keep it attractive. So, for example, this toilet paper holder that's here is actually a grab bar, and when installed correctly, will hold up to 300 pounds of weight. So, you don't necessarily need a toilet riser and a grab bar by your toilet. You can use something that's a little bit more stylish. This soap dish in the shower is also a grab bar, and when installed correctly, again, can support up to 300 pounds of weight. So it could be used if you needed it for standing or for balance in the shower. This picture in the corner, it's a towel bar, but it's also a grab bar. So you hang the towels on the bottom bar, and the top bar actually has plastic grips on the back to make the grip a little bit better. So think of ways that you can make your home safer, but not necessarily turn it into an institution. Now, I recognize that there are some people who have to be at home. They um, are unable to go out for a number of reasons. And certainly, all of us in the last year have had to stay home because of the COVID-19 pandemic. That does not mean that we can't make the world a little bit bigger virtually. And some of you may have taken advantage of the internet to take singing lessons or pottery or knitting lessons, as well as to reach out to family and friends who are at home. Now, one thing that may be a problem, oh, and many of you have reached out through Senior Planet and are coming together digitally with people all over the United States and learning to use the digital world, the tech world, for many different kinds of activities. However, 67% of older adults have online access, but only 51% have access to high speed internet. I live in Silicon Valley and have the privilege of high speed internet and not having very many problems with the internet, but I know that many people in the region and in the country don't have that accessibility. In Santa Clara County, where this organization is based, 23,000 older adults are without a computer and 16,000 without internet access. And because of the COVID-19 pandemic, many places where they might have gotten access before, the libraries and the senior centers or the coffee shops, are closed. And so it's made even more dramatic changes. There are some resources for older adults who don't have access. So if you know anyone in that position, help them search for some of the low cost resources, particularly if they're Medi-Cal eligible. They are also eligible for discount services. Now, moving away from the home into community spaces, it's important that we have places that we can go that we feel safe in meeting and traveling. Um, it may be that we need to change our activities a little bit. We may need to think about what we've done in the past as we age, and we may no longer want to do the long trips. So we can change our activities to have shorter trips closer to home, or maybe we'll consider going on a tour someday after we're not worried about COVID. We might think about taking a tour with people again to make the activities easier. If transportation at night or concerns about safety at night are a problem, we can think about meeting with our friends at different times. Some of the activities we like to do around our community or around our house, like climbing ladders to trim trees, we may want to rethink those activities and leave that to people who are perhaps a little bit younger than us. Um, you notice I didn't say fitter. Before I worked in the Farewell to Falls program, I worked for many years in trauma centers at several teaching hospitals. And I just have a fear of people falling off houses while they're cleaning their gutters or trimming their trees. Um, and looking at resources within our community to help us. So many of the senior centers have handy persons or other people who can help with transportation and work around the home, having groceries delivered. And some of those are available at low or no cost for older adults. Now, the other way we can stay active is to compensate. If we can't walk the distances anymore, to consider using a wheelchair, using other appliances to help us. This is me. I've been using trekking poles for quite a long time because I have a history of knee problems. This is me about 10 years ago, so you can see it's a long-standing problem. Um, and now I have trekking poles that look like these. I have these because they're extremely lightweight and they fit into a very small backpack and fit into my suitcase very nicely. And they usually travel with me in the trunk of my car so that I have them everywhere in case I need them. And so you can consider other alternatives to medical equipment if it works for you. I love this use of a walker. It's probably one of the most fun pictures I've seen of someone using a walker. Um, there are many different kinds of walkers or aids for you. And the important thing to remember is to think about what you're going to be using it for. Is it going to be indoors? Is it going to be outdoors? Is it going to be used for fishing or other um, activities, even tennis? Why not? So think about what your walker might be used for and try out different kinds of equipment. You know, some of the resources that you may not know about, this is one. It's a sand wheelchair. And the map lists all of the state beaches in California from San Francisco to Los Angeles that rent these beach chairs so that you could still head out to the beach if that's a favorite activity. It looks like he has his fishing poles behind him. He could wheel right up to the water's edge and be fishing there. The other thing to consider is staycations. So, if you're not traveling as far now, you could go for a day trip or even an overnight trip. at some of the hotels that are being contactless entry if you're worried about the COVID-19, and using outdoor dining now that the weather's getting better. So you may alter from longer vacations to shorter vacations. If you are going to go on a longer vacation, you should know that you have some rights and there are some things that can help you as you travel. So, the Americans with Disabilities Act guarantees access and accommodations, commercial facilities, and transportation. So, if you're staying in a hotel, you can ask for a room that has grab bars and perhaps a walk in shower. Buses and other transportation providers are required to be accessible. Airlines also have to provide accommodations if they're given 24 hours notice. And one thing to remember with them is that wheelchairs and walkers and other medical equipment is not considered luggage. So you don't have to pay to transport that equipment. If you're going to go on a flight, you might want to look for direct flights or go on shorter flights with a break in between. Now, if you are going to have connections and you're a little slower, you might want to consider having a longer time between the flight connections. And you can also look for planes that have accessible lavatories. Planes that have two aisles are required to have one accessible bathroom, but if you're in one part of the plane and the accessible lavatory is in a distant part of the plane, it may still be difficult for you to use that. Make sure that you travel with a change of clothes. You perhaps consider continence pads. If you're going to visit family or friends and they don't have bathrooms that you think are accessible, that's the one time that I recommend perhaps using a suction cup grab bar that you can travel with yourself or that your family could purchase for you. Or there are also grab bars that attach to the side of a tub. One person who traveled told me that he um, fell in the shower when he was traveling in England. So the tour guide went to buy him a suction cup mat that he traveled with to all the hotels in Europe. But there, I don't know if you can see these. These are little discs that you can buy that you can easily throw into a suitcase, and they come in a pack of 5 or 6. You can put those down at different hotels that you're using, and then, or if you're visiting family or friends, and use those as the non-slip part. Also, be sure to talk with your doctor about the timing of medications or if you need supplemental oxygen. Remember that when you're flying, the planes are pressurized for a much higher altitude than we're used to breathing. So it may make you more tired to be on that flight. Or if you're going through many different time zones and the timing of your medications is important, you want to make sure that you're adjusting that appropriately. Think about where you want to sit in the plane. Bulkhead seats have a big space in front of them for getting up. If you sit in the aisle, it's easier to get out if you need to go to the bathroom, but you may have fellow passengers who are either climbing over you or that you have to get up to let them out. So you might want to consider a window seat for shorter flights. If you're hard of hearing, you can arrange for text alerts for your phone, and making sure that you have prearranged transportation at the end of your flight so that you don't have to worry about that when you're tired from a long flight. Other travel tips, just take time to plan your trip. Consider trip insurance and supplemental medical insurance for when you're traveling. Um, Focus on safety and health. Make sure that you don't have to worry about your house back home. Don't take valuables with you. Make sure that you have extra medications, or if you're traveling within the United States and you have a pharmacy that's nationwide, you can visit the pharmacies in the communities you're in and get duplicates. And I know that from experience, having forgotten my medication on one trip, it was very easy to go in and just ask for something that I could continue to use for the rest of the vacation. Um, Drink plenty of water. People become dehydrated with flying, and that can make you dizzy or even a little confused if you become dehydrated. So I know that sometimes people are a little concerned about access to bathrooms, and so they're trying to limit what they're drinking, but then they are more likely then to become dehydrated. And remember that if you're dehydrated, the effects of your medications may also be greater. Um, and then be as comfortable as possible with planning. You can make sure that you're not worried about how things are going to go on your trip. So, what I would like you to do now at the end of this talk is to think about what you want to do. You've probably had a lot of time to think about this during COVID isolation. Now that we're emerging from this period and being able to start doing things, what what new things would you like to add to your book? Where would you like to go? And to start planning on how you might um, continue your story rather than thinking that you have to withdraw into the home, looking at the world and thinking about how you want to be active in it. And I'm going to leave you with this quote by John Muir. The world is big, and I want to have a good look at it before it gets dark. So please continue aging on the go.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bolding. We have now reached our FAQ section. So we have a few questions for you. One is that we got is, what can we do if the sidewalks in my community are not safe for walking? Like if they are uneven?
So the resources that we have for community safety can vary by community. So I know that in some of the cities around where I live, they have sites online where you can call and report a cracked sidewalk, and they will actually come out and fix it fairly rapidly. Many cities are concerned about safety for their residents and have the staff to be able to do that. So I would contact them if there are businesses that you like to go to and you can park under a light at night so that it feels safer to you and so that you can see. Carrying a flashlight at night. I know some people have their telephones and they can use the flashlight, but often carrying even a small flashlight, those can be much brighter than the cell phones. And so using that to help see obstacles. Not hurrying is important because, I can't tell you how many times I've had people tell me they tripped over those little blocks in the parking lots because they just didn't see it. They were looking to the entrance to the store, or they were looking at what was going on around them, and then they tripped over those obstacles. So paying attention to the environment around you. I would say those are some of the some of the things. I have one friend who, whenever she sees those little liquid amber balls that are round, they drop off a lot of the trees around my neighborhood. She kicks them off to the side of the road because she's afraid somebody. She's 85 or 86 now. I don't even know, but she kicks them off to the side because she doesn't want an old person to trip on them. And so I think being aware of obstacles like that is really important.
Thank you. Those answers were very insightful. We have another question. Um, I think a cane or walker might help me outside, but I don't know the best kind to get. How can I educate myself about what to buy and how to use it?
Okay. Um, This is an interesting question. My students at San Jose State actually did a survey of older adults a couple of years ago and asked them, how did you get your walker? And almost everybody got their walker from a friend or bought it themselves or a family member gave it to them. Very few people knew anything about walkers. It was just given to them. And there are a lot of differences. If you saw from the picture that I showed, there's three-wheel walkers, there's four-wheel walkers, there's walkers with seats or without them, there's walkers with small wheels, and there's walkers with very large wheels. And depending on what you need the walker or the cane for, um, you want to look at some of those different features. So if you're using the walker in the house, one with small wheels is fine because you're not going to be going over cracks. But if you have a small house and you need a walker, you might want a three-wheel walker because it has a really small turning radius. And any walker you get, you should be able to get in and out of your car yourself if possible because you want to take it with you when you travel. Most people also don't realize that canes and walkers should be adjusted to your height. And there are walkers, special walkers for people under about 5'1" in height and over 6 foot in height. And the rest are adjustable for a range of heights. So you want to make sure that you're using a walker that helps you stand up straight. I hate seeing people with walkers that are too low for them and they're hunched over the walker and pushing it in front, or it has a seat and they can't walk straight when they're pushing the walker because it makes us look older than we are to hunch over like that. Those are some of the considerations. You might want to visit a physical therapist and talk to them about your walking and what they might recommend. But I would choose a physical therapist. Even as occupational therapists, some work with pediatrics, some work with sports injuries. We specialize. So I would look for a physical therapist that specializes in working with older adults.
Very helpful. Thank you. I think we have time for one more question, and that is I have family coming to visit, and they are not as mobile as I am. What can I do to make their visit safer?
So I talked about this a little bit in terms of buying equipment that's removable. So you may not want a grab bar in your house. I don't know. My kids found it useful for when they were shaving their legs or hanging their washcloth or placing their shampoo. So it never hurt to have the grab bar in my house with younger people. But if you don't want to install that, there are temporary ones that you can put on the side of the tub or the suction cup grab bars. Um, there are also places where you can borrow or rent equipment. I don't know about all the cities on the peninsula, but I live near Avenidas in Palo Alto, and they have an equipment closet and they will loan equipment. So I have had people visit my house where I borrowed a commode chair. They have a fairly good collection of walkers and canes. And I even knew someone who borrowed one of their knee scooters after her knee surgery. So you might want to check at places where you can either borrow or rent equipment.
Very helpful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And thank you so much to everyone who came to today's presentation. And thank you, Dr. Bolding, for such a great and insightful presentation. You can scan the QR code to subscribe to our Yoho Talk newsletter and let me know if you have any questions or issues with the QR code. We hope to see you at our next Yoho Talk next month. Thank you, everybody.